For residents across northern Australia, the cyclone season has begun and is expected to be an active one. The Weather Bureau says the La Nina weather pattern means more cyclones than usual could form along the Australian coast. In the Northern Territory, residents are being urged to prepare for the worst. But there's been a simmering debate about how Darwin would stand up to another major cyclone like Tracy back in 1974. Sarah Everingham reports from Darwin.
I wasn't prepared for the first look outside in the morning to see that Darwin had gone. I'll never forget that.
Darwin, Christmas Day 1974. Cyclone Tracy had left a devastated city in its wake. 65 people dead, hundreds injured and most houses damaged.
Well, it was the most frightening thing that's ever happened to me. Every time you got a bit stronger gust and the house shook a bit more, you'd think this is it, it's going to go. And well, for some people, for a lot of people, it did go. Well, that gives you some idea of what it sounded like. I couldn't believe how much punishment the house had taken.
Cyclone Tracy survivor Peter Bate is keen for others to understand the threat of destructive cyclones.
Just try and be prepared, because you could get a nasty surprise if you're not.
He's not the only Tracy survivor who's concerned that Darwin may not be prepared for another big blow.
It was awful. I was in a house that completely blew away, except for the floorboards that we were on, with a wife and 3 little kids. Yeah, it's just an experience that I wouldn't want anyone ever to go through. And yet, unless we do something about fixing up and designing for houses strong enough, it will happen again.
Mike Nicholls leads a small group of Darwin residents, among them retired engineers. As the storm season lashes Darwin, the group worries the city would be devastated by a direct hit from the most severe category of cyclone.
How many deaths? Who knows, but it'd be hundreds, possibly more than 1,000.
These builders working under boiling skies are building to a code which requires houses be designed for a 1 in 500 year event. That means most houses in Darwin are constructed to stand up to Category 4 cyclones.
At the moment in the Territory, we plan for residential buildings to be coded at 250 km/h to withstand 250 km/h winds. We code our shelters to withstand winds of 280 km/h.
But just 4.5 years ago, a cyclone with far more powerful winds hit the Northern Territory coast. According to the Weather Bureau, Cyclone Monica's winds peaked at 360 kilometres an hour. It was classified as the most severe type of cyclone, a Category 5 system. Monica narrowly missed the remote Aboriginal community of Maningrida, 500 kilometres east of Darwin. While no one was seriously injured, there was extensive damage. Mike Nicholls says if a cyclone of that intensity directly hit Darwin, the consequences would be catastrophic.
If it's right down the bottom of a Cat 5, there'd be quite a few houses that would probably survive. But by the time you get up to a Monica or a Thelma, I'd say none would survive.
I don't agree with that viewpoint. I think even if a Category 5, a genuine Category 5 actually did hit Darwin, buildings designed to the current standards, they've always got reserves of strength in there.
John Holmes heads the committee that sets wind force standards for the construction of buildings around the country. He says a severe Category 5 cyclone hitting somewhere in Darwin is a 1 in 2,000 year event.
Darwin itself is actually fairly sheltered from cyclones. I think Cyclone Tracy was probably a fairly rare event. That cyclone had to do 2 left-hand turns in order to hit Darwin, so it probably is not going to happen very often. But the thing is, it's always a trade-off between cost and safety. Somebody's going to have to pay for this, so, it's a trade-off. And I think the balance is fairly good at the moment.
My main concern is that the focus on Cat 5s takes people's minds away from the fact that Category 1, 2 and 3 cyclones are also very dangerous. Shelter across from Rosebery is over here.
But even the director of the Northern Territory Emergency Service says the debate about what type of cyclone Darwin's buildings can withstand is inconsequential if people are complacent.
No point at the Royal Commission afterwards pointing your finger at government didn't do this and government didn't do that. The reality is if you haven't cleaned up your backyard and as a consequence your bin goes to your next door neighbour's house and opens it up, then you're putting yourself and your neighbours at risk.
This damage around Darwin was caused by Category 1 Cyclone Helen in 2008. But Peter Davies says many residents didn't take the warnings for that cyclone seriously. 600 trees came down, people were in the streets drinking, and it's not a good place to be, a good look when you've got a cyclone coming in. You mean they were in the pubs?
They were at the pubs, yeah, literally. They didn't understand that even a Category 1 strength cyclone could make things very dangerous.
This cyclone season, Darwin's readiness could again be put to the test.
It's getting on for 40 years since tracing. We've had near misses from a number of big ones. For the majority of people who live here now, they don't know what it's like.